Hey, good day. It is July 14th, a Monday. And thank you so much for joining me here as we do the daily news update. And as a reminder, if you like a program like this, please like and subscribe on YouTube. I do appreciate it. And if you want to follow me, get additional content, every Tuesday night we have a roundtable. Every Friday, I do a special video for my Substack supporters. You can find the link in the description. All right, let's get into it. The top news stories for today. The big one everyone was waiting for, or at least I was the major Russian announcement by Trump. And like everything, Trump tends to overhype everything. But let's dig into this a little bit. And I'll show a couple of clips here and what Trump had to say about today. This is Monday. About
Will these be Patriot missiles specifically, or Patriot batteries that you're planning? And when do you
everything.
here we go. Let's sorry about that. Let's do this again here.
will these be Patriot missiles specifically, or Patriot batteries that you're planning? And when do you
everything. It's Patriots. It's all of them. It's a full complement with the batteries.
And when do you expect them to arrive in Ukraine, sir?
Well, we're going to have some come very soon, within days, actually. It's a couple of the countries that have Patriots are going to swap over and will replace the Patriots with the ones they have. And Matt will coordinate with NATO. But so it's going to be, they're going to start arriving very soon.
And this afternoon, Boris Pistorius, the German defense minister, is visiting Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, and we'll discuss also, I think, on this whole Patriot thing. Norway is involved, so that's on the Patriots, but this whole deal is also about missiles or ammunition, so it's broader than Patriots.
All right, so the deal is more than just Patriot missiles. It's also ammunition. And Trump is doing something I think is disingenuous basically here. What he's doing is saying, we're not going to supply the Patriots or this ammunition to Ukraine. NATO is going to supply it, and they're going to buy it. So NATO will buy these missiles from us and give them to Ukraine, which sounds good because Trump's all about making deals. And like, that's the real issue. I mean, yeah, I don't really care so much who's paying for it. We don't need to be involved with this war. But Trump thinks this will make it a little bit easier. But all we're doing is we're actually increasing how much we're paying NATO, because we are NATO, the United States. The other countries contribute very little. So it's just an accounting trick. So we pay NATO, and with that money, NATO buys from us the Patriot missiles to give to Ukraine. So either way you dice it, we are paying for these missiles. And again, Russia has been hammering Kiev almost every night with drones and with missiles, despite the propaganda. Remember a couple years ago, all the mainstream media said, Russia, they're out of missiles, they're out of ammunition, they're about to collapse. Well, that's not true. In fact, they've scaled up their production, and it's amazing how many missiles they are creating now. The Patriots, I don't know what really good they will do, in the sense that they're very expensive and they're limited quantities. And one of the reasons we kind of scaled back on what we gave Ukraine is because our best little friends in the Middle East, they wanted our Patriot missiles with their, they did their sneak attack on Iran and they were attacked by Iran. So they needed the Patriot missiles. And so we depleted a lot of our supply for Israel. And then we need some in reserve in case we want to start a war with China. And then Ukraine's already been getting some. So there's a limited quantity. And again, you can't make them that quick. They have a long lead time. They're very expensive. And then there's a practical problem is they're pretty good, I guess, somewhat, although the Patriot missiles are not able to shoot down the hypersonic missiles. So the more modern missiles, they're pretty useless against. And the problem is, sure, you can use the Patriot missiles to shoot down like some drones and some other missiles, but Russia just produces so much now that it, again, will drain the inventory. And once those missiles are out, it's not like we can make some in a month. They require a long lead time. So this is really a stopgap measure that I don't know how effective it will be done. And Trump talks a little bit more about this. So let me show you guys this. This was all part of his big announcement on Monday about Russia. And we'll take a look here.
And we've made a deal today, and I'm going to have Mark speak about it, but we've made a deal today where we are going to be sending them weapons and they're going to be paying for them. The United States will not.
All right, so we're sending NATO weapons, and NATO's going to be paying for them. But again, we fund NATO. In fact, we increase spending on NATO to pay for these weapons. So it's really, it's silly. That'd be like, for example, I said, well, I'm not giving my car to my son. I'm selling my car to my son. But before I sell my car to my son, let's say for $10,000, I give my son $10,000. So I go, here you go, son, $10,000. And then you want to buy my car for $10,000? Sure. Then I can say, hey, officially, I didn't give him the car. I sold it to him. This is a game that Trump is playing with NATO.
Not be having any payment made. We're not buying it, but we will manufacture it and they're going to be paying for it. Our last meeting of a month ago was very successful in that they agreed to 5%, which is more than $1 trillion a year. So they have a lot of money, and these are wealthy nations. They have a lot of money, and they want to do it. They feel very strongly about it, and we feel strongly about it too. But we're in for a lot of money, and we don't want to do anymore, and we can't. But we make the best, and we're going to be sending the best to NATO, and in some cases to maybe, at Mark's suggestion, if we go to Germany, where they're going to send early on missiles, and they'll be replaced, and NATO is going to take care of it. It's going to be coordinated by NATO, and they're going to work very much with Matt Whitaker, who's right here, who's a great ambassador, and Matt's going to be coordinated. You better do a good job, Matt.
I will.
So this is a big departure from what Trump promised. Remember, Trump promised that he would negotiate the end of the war with Russia on day one. He failed in that. And then Trump constantly whined and reminded everyone, this isn't his war. It's not my war. Biden, it's his fault. Russia would have never invaded if I was president. It's Biden's fault. It's not my war. And it looked like Trump was trying to wash his hands of this war, which is America first. We don't need to be in these wars. This war is not important to America. This is a territorial dispute on the Donbass between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine is not part of NATO. Ukraine is a dictatorship. It's a corrupt country. We have no business fighting a war for them. But we got suckered into this because of our involvement in Ukraine, which goes way back to 2014, where Victoria Nuland and Obama, we did a coup and overthrew the president of Ukraine, who was friendly with Russia, and we put in one of our puppets. And then came along Zelensky. And we were trying to get Ukraine as part of NATO, and we're putting military in there and bases and all sorts of shit. And Russia had enough of that. So we got tied into Ukraine. We should have never been there. And Trump had a perfect opportunity. I don't really mind that he tried to get a peace treaty, but when that wasn't possible, he should have said, this isn't our business. We're pulling out. We're going to focus on America. We don't have the money to deal with this. And we're not going to get involved with these wars. We're perpetually in war. We're not going to do that anymore. It looked like Trump was going to do that, but then it seems like, which is common with Trump, the neocons kind of took over him. People like Lindsey Graham now are buddy-buddy with him. And now we're going down to this ridiculous involvement escalating in Ukraine.
But Matt's going to coordinate. He's a very talented guy. He's going to coordinate everything. So in a nutshell, we're going to make top-of-the-line weapons, and they'll be sent to NATO. NATO may choose to have certain of them sent to other countries where we can get a little additional speed, where the country will release something and it'll be mostly in the form of a replacement. And I'd like to have Mark, and again, just a highly respected, pretty young guy for having had the career that he's had, because he had an amazing career before going to NATO. So, and we spent a lot of time together over the last couple of months. And if you could say a few words.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's typical Trump. He starts to like people their personality, and he agrees with them. And so it looks like that is what is happening. And Trump says we're going to send the best weapons to Ukraine. So again, this is pretty much a escalation of resending our arms. Again, Trump is playing a little trick, saying, "Oh, they're going to buy them for us, but we're giving them the money to buy them from us." So it's ridiculous. Plus, Russia will see it. We're just getting more involved with this war, which is going to be a disaster because Ukraine can't win this war, even with these weapons. It's just prolonging the war, creating more death because Ukraine is running out of men. Russia is winning. They are advancing on the front. It's getting worse for Ukraine. The weapons may help them, maybe give them a few additional months, but that's it. Again, we have a low stockpile of these weapons. We're not a manufacturing superpower anymore. We're not like China. We've outsourced everything. So we have a lot of issues here. So Ukraine will still lose. It's just that we're pissing away and losing all this money and weapons on a losing cause. It's a disaster. But this is what we're doing. This seems to be the game plan. And it's unfortunate. And the other thing that Trump decided to do, the big announcement, so one was to get more weapons to Ukraine, but then try to disguise it and fool you guys to think that, well, we're not really paying for it. No, you are. And here's this other thing that's kind of a real, it's actually a dangerous idea, but let's listen to this.
One of the reasons that you're here today is to hear that we are very unhappy, I am, with Russia, but we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days.
And as I said before, Trump is starting to blur the difference between tariffs and sanctions. Again, tariffs are a legitimate economic policy. You may not agree with tariffs, but tariffs are just a way for a country to generate income like we're doing. We're generating a lot of income on tariffs and to protect your industries. It's mostly controlled by Congress, by the way. It's not a form of foreign policy to attack another nation economically. Now, if you're going to attack another nation economically, we call those sanctions, and those are aggressive. Tariffs aren't aggressive. All countries have that right. Sanctions are aggressive. But Trump is starting to blur the two. He's starting to call tariffs sanctions if he doesn't like their political policy. And so here we go.
Tariffs at about 100%. You call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means. But today we're going to talk about something else. And as you know, we've spent $350 billion approximately on this war with Russia and Ukraine. And would like to see it end. It wasn't my war, it was Biden's war.
Yeah, you can say that over and over, Trump, but once you start escalating it, it's your war. It'd be like LBJ did the same thing in the Vietnam War. Oh, it's not my war. It's Kennedy got us into this. Yeah, but LBJ, you're president. You escalated the war. It was your baby. It destroyed LBJ's presidency a long time ago. Most of you weren't even born back then, but that was the Vietnam history. Trump is trying the same thing. Oh, this isn't my war. But then he keeps increasing the spending and he doesn't pull out of it. So Trump, you can say that over and over and over. It doesn't matter. It is your war now. You own it and you own the result.
It's not my war. I'm trying to get you out of it. And we want to see it end. And I'm disappointed in President Putin because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there.
Why would he think they would have a deal? It's both of their positions, Ukraine and Russia, are pretty straightforward. Most of it has to do with those 4 or 5 regions, if you count Donbass, where Russia considers those regions historically Russian and Ukraine considers them Ukrainian. And that's the dispute. And both sides say they won't budge an inch. So I don't know why Trump is confused about that. They're at a state of war, these two countries. And when you're at war, you fight each other.
So based on that, we're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%. And that's the way it is. That can be more simple. It's just the way it is. I hope we don't have to do it.
Yeah, that's dumb, to be honest. These secondary tariffs, by the way, they're not really tariffs at this point. They're sanctions because we're punishing countries. And if you don't want to understand what a secondary tariff is, it's we have sanctions on Russia, for example, that we can't buy their oil and other products. That happened under Joe Biden. And I don't know how many sanctions we have on tons. But what we want to do now is say but they're not working because Russia, they still sell oil and gas and their natural mineral resources to China, India, Brazil. I mean, half the world still deals with Russia, right? So the sanctions haven't really made a big impact on Russia. In fact, Russia's economy is growing. They're doing pretty well. So the sanctions were a total failure because, and they said, well, they failed because Russia is not isolated. They are still dealing with these other nations. So Trump's idea of secondary tariffs or sanctions is where you put tariffs of 100% on any country that does business with Russia. So in practical terms, that means in 50 days, if Russia doesn't give up and decide that they're not going to maintain those 4 regions or whatever, and they won't, they consider this existential, that we will put 100% tariff on any country that deals with Russia. And again, at that point, it's not really a tariff, it's a sanction, but we're calling it a tariff. And that's very aggressive. We've done that before in the United States history. I think the big time we did that was in the 30s with Imperial Japan. The Roosevelt administration was very unhappy with Japan. So not only did we have sanctions on Imperial Japan, but we did secondary sanctions on any other country from doing business with Japan. And that's a very aggressive action. And Japan considered that aggressive, and that led to Pearl Harbor. And in this situation, just in a practical matter, what this would mean is that in 50 days, we're saying, okay, in Russia, unless you agree to a peace agreement based on our demands, China and India and all the rest of the nations in the world can't do business with you. And China, if you do business with Russia, like you're doing now, we're going to put 100% tariff on you. I said tariff in quotes because it's really a sanction. And China would have a right to be pissed off because they're like, well, wait a minute. Now you're getting into determining our political process. It's one thing if we're having an economic dispute and you want to put tariffs on us. Okay, we may not like that. But this is different. This is you're calling them tariffs, but they're sanctions on us. That's an aggressive act against China and potentially India and these other countries. And so there's a risk there of sparking a greater war. But more likely it's just, okay, 100% tariff on China. That means we're not going to be doing business with China. And we get most of our crap from China because we've outsourced everything, including in many ways, our war production, which is crazy. So we're trying to pick a fight with a country that provides us a lot of the components to build these missiles and so forth. So there's no way this is going to work. There's no way it possibly can work. China and India and all these other countries are going to say, we don't care. We're not going to do that. And if we want to play hardball with China, they're like, okay, then maybe we'll stop buying your treasuries because you have such a budget deficit, and maybe we will just cut you off. So this is a bad idea by Trump, and this is a idea that came from Lindsey Graham, what he called his bone-crushing sanctions that he wanted to put on Russia. This is not a good thing, and I definitely oppose it. And Rand Paul came out and talked a little bit about this. Let's look at his comments.
Continuing to speak about directing our attention towards our domestic problems and knowing that we don't have enough money. I tell people, look, yeah, sure, Russia was the aggressor. Russia invaded Ukraine. All of the moral arguments are for Ukraine.
I disagree with that, by the way, but we'll go forward.
But what about the argument that in order to fight a war, in order for us to fund a war and to arm Ukraine, we have to borrow the money from China to fund Ukraine. It's the same sort of thing.
Now Trump will say, "Oh well, we're not paying for. We're not sending these weapons. NATO is buying them from us," and that's really a joke because we're paying NATO to buy them for us. So we are still paying for it.
And people say, "Well, what about the poor people in sub-Saharan Africa? Don't you care? Why?
No, I don't care about them.
Why don't we help them?" I say, "Well, you can help them if you have a surplus, but we would have to go to the bank to borrow." And to me, it's sort of the equivalent of you're walking down the street and you make $25,000 a year and you can barely pay your rent and you have no extra money, and you see a homeless person. You have a great deal of sympathy and you say, well, gosh, I should go to the first bank and borrow $1,000 to give to the homeless person. Nobody thinks that way. But essentially, that's what we are now. We are full of a lot of people on both sides of the aisle with a great deal of sympathy. The hawks want to fund war. The left wants to fund welfare, the warfare welfare state. And what we're stuck with is people that just are putting us further and further into debt.
So Rand Paul's argument is based just purely on finance, which I disagree. Finance is an issue, but the major issue, George Washington talked about this, is the mistake to get into these foreign entanglements. Even if we ran a surplus, I would oppose getting involved with these wars. So it's unfortunate. Trump is, in many ways, is starting to disappoint. In some ways, Trump has done a lot of good things, but his policy on Russia, he started out well, but the neocons got a hold of him, and that is pretty crazy. All right, so the number one story was Russia. The number two story is what you see as a result of replacement or immigration. And again, in the 70s, Minnesota was like 97% white. So was Minneapolis. If you ever watched the show in the 70s, Mary Tyler Moore Show was based in Minnesota. It was basically a lot of immigrants from Norway and Sweden went to Minnesota. Very nice state. And then starting in the 90s, the people of Minnesota didn't vote for this, but certain groups, you can guess which ones, decided to flood Minnesota with Somalis. Because remember, we had that fight in Somalia, Black Hawk Down and all that. So we thought a good idea was, oh, let's just pour all these people, these violent people into Minnesota. And it's changed the demographics, and what was a peaceful state is now very violent. And again, this has been repeated not just in America, it's happened in Sweden. It's very similar to what happened in Sweden. Swedish people were very peaceful, nonviolent people. And then they were tricked by people like Barbara Specter saying they needed to embrace diversity and enrichment. So they imported a bunch of Muslims from Africa. And now it's like the rape capital of Europe. It's very violent. Same thing happened in Minnesota. And now we have this guy that's running for the mayor of Minneapolis. This is how much demographics have changed things. And he's Somalian. And he looks like the, you ever see that meme? Like, I'm the captain now. Remember that one? That meme where the pirate takes over the ship. I'm the captain now. And this is the vibe we get. So here's the guy that's running for mayor of Minneapolis. And again, they have a huge Muslim Somali population, which will vote for him. I'm going to redo this segment. So because I don't want that YouTube may not like this music. So I'm going to cut out what I had. And basically the Somali man is running for mayor of Minnesota. He's doing the radical left positions like the guy running for mayor of New York City. He doesn't have any ties to America. He promises to diversify Minneapolis more. It's almost all Somali now. And that just means getting rid of white people and Christians. A disaster. This is where we are now. So that's the number two story. It just shows the dangers of immigration. All right. The number three story is Trump is still upset at Powell. The Fed chairman Powell, he wants Powell to make an interest rate cut because hoping it would spur the economy. Although that it would in some ways, but then you have potential of inflation. And so it's been an interesting battle they've had back and forth. And let's take a look at a little bit of this.
The bottom line is, from my perspective, that when the Federal Reserve was created, we were under a gold standard. And the idea that the Fed could print money and then spend $2.5 billion on a building without real congressional oversight, it didn't occur to the people that framed the Federal Reserve Act.
The Federal Reserve, they don't print money. They just lower the interest rates. He's kind of misstating what they really do.
And so I think that we've got a real problem of oversight and excess spending. And to put it in perspective, the cost overrun right now is $700 million. The second biggest renovation of a building that we've ever had in the history of D.C. was the Federal Reserve building. I mean, the FBI building. And the FBI building, the whole thing costs about the same as this cost overrun at the Fed. And so I think that we definitely need to rethink the way the Fed's acting. We 100% want independent monetary policy, but it sure looks like they need more congressional oversight on things like the way they build their buildings.
Yeah, they're spending like billions of dollars to renovate the Fed building. And just so you know, technically the Federal Reserve, they do report up through Congress, so they're not totally independent. Congress can control them. But yeah, they do seem pretty wasteful. So that was the number 3 story, the battle with Jerome Powell. The 4th story that is kind of making some rounds is Biden and his autopen. And there's a New York, there was a lot of pardons that Biden did. He didn't sign it personally. An autopen, by the way, is a machine that automatically reproduces your signature. And so sometimes if it's like a form letter and you don't want to personally write your signature over and over, it's just the machine does it. Biden did that for many times. He wouldn't take the time to actually sign it. It was just done by his staff. And what Trump is claiming, a lot of people are claiming, is Biden was incapacitated and he didn't know what he was doing for the most part. And his staff, they were issuing the pardons, and Biden didn't really understand because he's senile. And they did it with the autopen. Now, he did do it with an autopen. That is not up for debate, but there's some question if he knew what he was doing. And if so, are those pardons valid because of that? So that was a big issue for today. And then finally, this is just incredible, even by Germany standards. This is worse than Weimar Germany at this point. We need a huge change. Mass deportations is not working. This German judge, this woman judge, 8 men, these were immigrants, Muslims, I think from Africa, and they gang raped a German girl, a little German girl, for 3 hours, almost killed her. And they have the DNA evidence that proved they did it. But they were set free because this lady, this German judge, said that, well, maybe they raped this girl because they were frustrated with their migration experiences, right? So, which is totally natural. Say if you're visiting in a country and you're like, oh man, they forgot my luggage was late. So I have to blow off steam? So you know what I'm going to do to blow off steam? I'm just going to rape a native girl. I'm just going to get my buddies together and we're going to rape and almost kill a native girl. Say like we're all going to Hungary. They lose my luggage. Hey guys, let's rape a Hungarian girl. And then you go in front of a Hungarian judge. They go, well, you probably shouldn't rape this girl, but you did. They did lose your luggage, so you were frustrated. So we'll call it good. That's literally what happened here. It astounds me how low we can get as a Western society. Women, I don't think, should be judges. This lady needs to be held accountable. There needs to be a great expelling of the people that don't belong in our countries. They're obviously not compatible. We don't have to put up with this. We need to punish the people that directed this into our homelands to make sure they never do that again. So outrageous. And it's just not in, I would say, Germany. You can blame Germany, but same thing happening in the United States. And again, it was let me just show you this. This is in Colorado. This guy, fine looking young man, Here we go. Solomon Galligan, who tried to kidnap a child at school, is found incompetent, and so they let him go free. This guy, he looks like a zombie. Doesn't even look human. And so this guy is set loose again on the people of Colorado. He tried to kidnap a child, and we'll just let him go. It's just crazy. People are fed up. We got to stop this. It is horrible. Guys, that was my update for today. Thank you so much for being here. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.